Eurosport back live at Budapest with the thumping sound of Radio DJ knocking on the back door of our commentary booth. Martin Haven and David Leslie, and we've just for the last 3 hours been watching a thrilling race unfold here at the Hungaroring round 6 of the FIA GT Championship. Victory and third place overall going to the Cars Bought Holland cars. Well, now we're going to take a look at the Euro STC. 2 races for these guys, the first earlier this morning, and this is the way they lined up in the championship as they came here. Nicola Lorini the points leader, but not by much from Fabrizio Giovanardi. Not by much, well, just by 2 points, that's all.
Fabrizio, I know you think that the start is going to be important, obviously, at the Hungaroring, but you've been testing in Fiorano, you've been testing the suspension. How will that help you at the end of the race?
But we did a good hard work on the suspension, what I say, because it's important to gain on the race, to use less the tire. I think the job was for that.
Well, the story of the break between this weekend and Zolder is that indeed, while everybody else was away doing Le Mans and so on, Alfa Romeo have spent a lot of time and money and effort redeveloping the car. New engine work, incidentally, as well as new suspension work. Great start by the poleman. Nicola Lorini, slow away though, and he's been dumped away from the start. It's Giovanardi who leads from Gabriele Tarquini. Third place is the Audi, and that is Roberto Colciaggio. Fourth place, Nicola Lorini, under pressure from Fabrice Valfish from behind. Sixth place, Matt Neal, the red machine there. And we found out after practice, or rather the team found out after practice, that the misfire that has plagued that car all the way through, caused by the FIA's rev limiter, they've got a new one on it. And look further back at the top of the picture, contact between the 2 Conrero Alfa Romeos. Now let's have a look again. Watch the white car come on the left-hand side. That's Enrico Toccacello, and coming in, down and making contact with him, his teammate in the number 10 car. So the 2 cars out of the race. Gianluca Roda's car also being pushed away, and it was Toccacello who was hit by Lancialotti, who had started a row or 2 rows further up the grid ahead of him. But it's the reigning champion, the European touring car champion, Fabrizio Giovanardi, who leads. Gabriele Tarquini in second place in the Honda, and Honda not quite able to find the qualifying pace to put Tarquini on pole, but they reckon in the race the Honda will be as every bit as much of a match for Giovanardi's Alfa Romeo. Colciaggio getting away well from third on the grid, and there is the number 9 car, and that's Lancialotti, looking fairly damaged after that clash with Toccacello. Incidentally, the 2 Conrero Alfas, we believe, now have the slightly older spec Nord Auto Alfa engine, which was definitely quicker than the Conrero engines beforehand. And so the Nord Auto cars have got a new development. Obviously, they're not going to give Conrero exactly what they've got. And there, the blonde lady in the dark blue with the headset on, Monica Sips, the boss of the team at Nord Auto outfit, running these 3 Alfa Romeos for Giovanardi, for Lorini, the points leader, and for Romana Bernardoni. Well, David, the Alfa Romeo's looking still very confident, but Lorini a long way back, dropping into the clutches of Valfish, but more importantly, dropping away from this trio here. He's got some kind of early problem.
Yeah, I'm surprised that he's dropped himself back there. They've been trying a lot of different things between the last race and now. These Alfa Romeos have been a lot of testing. They've said about the suspension that they were trying there. They've also got these new engines trying to go that little bit quicker this weekend. So for Lorini to be that far back, I can't quite work that one out, because he likes to be right at the front. I know he's going for points at the moment and not trying to damage his position, but being back and forth is not where he wants to be.
Well, now picking up the action, this is 9 laps into the race, and as you can see, Lorini still trying to hold on there ahead of Fabrice Valfish, but the action centering on Roberto Colciaggio's Audi, finally getting past the Honda. David, doing so, the Audi very good on the tight and twisty stuff, but in a straight line, the Hondas and the Alfas, much lighter cars because they don't have the 4-wheel drive weight penalty. well, able to match him on power, and although the Audi got itself on the brakes nice and early on the inside line, just not able to bring all that weight slowed down enough. Loses the place to Tarquini, loses to Larini, nearly loses out to Valfish as well, and that's all that extra weight in the Audi really causing him those problems.
Yeah, he just was trying very hard at the end of the straight. He knew the Honda was so much quicker in a straight line, and basically outbraked himself into that first corner at the end of the straight, and in doing so he's managed to lose himself 2 places instead of just a 1.
So good news for Tarquini, he's got rid of the Audi. Bad news for Tarquini is that Larini has picked up a place as well and scores a few more points. Bad news for Giovanardi too is that Larini picks up a few more points as well, courtesy of that problem with the Audi. But look, Colciaggio's fought his way back through again. And again, you know, at the end of the straight he loses several car lengths, but through the twisty stuff he really does make them up again. And, well, if Larini is not able to catch him, I think Colciaggio has got that place back for good, because he certainly looks close enough away, but oh dear, this is the start of it.
This is the replay early on when Colciaggio first went past Tarquini. Tarquini made a mistake on the corner at the back there, and that gave Colciaggio the little bit of run that he needed, because that was it. And then you can see that he's locked the brakes up coming into the corner at the end, and that's allowed Tarquini to come back through sort of 2 corners after he first take the place. And then running round wide round the outside, Larini's managed to nip in there as well.
Yeah, he was fortunate that he could straighten up for the inside line on the second left-hand corner, wasn't he? Because otherwise he would have lost the place to Valfish. So Matt Neal in 6th place, right on the back of this little group here. There's Larini. And look, he's almost in as much trouble there under braking as the Audi. I wonder if his brake pedal is going away on him or something else, because that number 2 car does not look anything like as composed as you would expect. Now, it would be great if the Hondas and the Nissans were able to fight door-to-door all the way through with the Nord Auto Alphas, but that hasn't always been the case. Certainly Tarquini can take the battle to them, but we've got 4 different manufacturers here in the top half dozen, so still pretty good going, but I do think that Larini is still struggling with some kind of a problem, and I'm not sure what it might be.
He's just on the back of that group. They've got the first 3 out, and he can't seem to touch the first 3. They're just pulling away that little bit now, and you've got this group here now fighting for 4.
Oh, and he is holding them up. Look, Fabrice Valfish having a look at, not even really having a look actually. He seemed to get caught out there because he was looking up and just, I think, touched the back of Larini's car, there's Valfish coming back on, but Matt Neal sneaked by as a result of that. And if certainly if he is nursing a brake problem, then maybe Larini. Let's have a look here. Yeah, it looks like Valfish sort of locks up a long way back, or let's say very early in the braking zone, and sort of closes, locked up much more quickly on Larini than he might have expected. And so, I don't know, maybe Larini has got a brake problem, and that might perhaps have caused him to start braking early into that back chicane. Whatever, here comes our race leader, Giovanardi from Tarquini. Oh, and Larini's off. Now, was Matt Neal inside him in the final corner? And did he make contact? There's Monica Sips. No, look, smoking heavily. And that's not the rear-wheel drive car spinning up its wheels. Of course, it's a front-wheel drive car. They can't do that. Have a look in replay. No contact at all. Matt Neal did go up the inside, but it's a puncture. Flat left rear. That's why Larini has spun.
And look at that. When that wheel goes away, that wheel's not turning. There's something wrong with that somewhere.
Yeah, well, maybe if he's caught the puncture there, and then the thing slid so much sideways, it's run the tyre off the rim and it's wrapped itself around the suspension. Well, he was too late to come into the pits there, so he's got no option but to motor on round and try and make it back in. Of course, he'll need to, because there's race 2 to think about, and how you finish here is reflected in how you start race 2 with the reverse grid. If Larini retires, he'll have to start from the pit lane, which will be, again, behind Giovanardi, Tarquini and all the other fast guys. If he can somehow get into the pits and get back out and finish the race, then if he's last, in fact, that would be perfect, considering, you know, for race 2, not for race 1, but it would mean that he would start at the front of the reverse grid. So, yeah, he's got to get back to the pits. Meanwhile, Tarquini right on the tail of Giovanardi, and Giovanardi probably not aware yet of what's happened to Larini, and the fact that Larini's picked up a puncture, it seems, not necessarily going to mean that Giovanardi has, but Tarquini very close indeed. see if he can make any inroads into the Alpha's power down the straight. Well, no, you'd have to say they're pretty much even on top speed, wouldn't you, David?
You would have to say there's very little in it between the two of them.
Colciago third in the Audi. Matt Neal pulling off to the left-hand side, yes. Well spotted there in the corner of the screen. Was fourth across the line ahead of Eric Carroll and Sandro Sardelli's Nissan. But for some reason pulling off on the left-hand side on the run down to turn one. Larini in the pits. So, off comes, not much from the left rear. A wheel with a bit of rubber still attached. It looks as though, luckily, it's untangled itself from the back end. There's Monica Sips, the team boss, overseeing things from the pit wall. And as Larini gets ready to rejoin, Tarquini all over the back of Giovanardi. No, surely Giovanardi can't have a problem in these closing stages. And Heinrich Szymanczyk's car. Now, how on earth has he done that? He must have made contact with somebody on the straight and been turned around and hit the pit wall head on. But goodness knows with whom.
I think what's really interesting about this is we've seen earlier on Colciago drop back when he locked up into that first corner, and these first two got away from him, and now he's been able to put in some very quick lap times and pulled right back up from about a couple of hundred yards back he was. Now he's picked himself up and right on the back of these two leading cars.
So Giovanardi really feeling the pressure from Tarquini, and Gabrielli almost pushing him through the corner there. He's so close, and Giovanardi's Alpha really squirming around. Well, whatever Nordauto have done, they've certainly given an improved car to Giovanardi and Larini, but amazing to think that the Honda team have not turned a wheel with this car since the last race, and still right on the pace of the Alphas all the way to the checkered flag. So it was Tarquini in second, Valfish there in fourth place ahead of the second group, but a victory for Giovanardi. Larini, though, will start at the front of the reversed grid. He's last across the line, but he does finish. So it'll be Nicola Larini, the man who led by 2 points coming into this race, who will start at the front of the grid on pole position. Giovanardi then takes the championship lead. Gabriele Tarquini second, finishes, needs to finish race two. He really must continue to score major points, and a good strong third place run from the Audi of Roberto Colciago.
That was a very controlled race there. You led from start to finish, but Gabriele was putting you under some great pressure. How difficult was it to keep Gabriele behind you?
I saw behind me Gabriele and also the Colciago really faster than me. I just do a race with one eye in front of me, one eye on the rear mirror, without do a mistake, because Gabriele was really fast.
So the points now, Giovanardi retakes the lead. Race two still to come, of course, after the FIA GTs. Nicola Larini in third place, Gabriele Tarquini in third place, rather Nicola Larini in second place, but Valfish closing up on Tarquini in fourth place. So the two Alphas and the two Hondas pretty much on speed, how you would expect the points to play out. And Matt Neal again, unfortunately failing to finish in race one. Disappointment for him, but delight for the Nordauto team. Monica Sips and the crew celebrating victory for the reigning champion in the European Touring Car Championship. That is Fabrizio Giovanardi ahead of Gabriele Tarquini. That's how they started. That's how they finished. So Giovanardi wins race one. What will he be able to do in race two? Well, we'll have to wait and see. But Nicola Larini might be the real. Eurosport back live for race two of the FIA Super Touring Championship. This is round 6 of the Eurosport Super Racing Weekends at the Hungaroring. And on pole position for the second race, Nicola Larini, whose puncture robbed him of any chance of a good finish in race one. But he's on pole here, and that may well mean victory for him here. Let's catch up with him, find out what he thinks.
Nicola, for the first time this morning, after this morning's result, you've lost the lead for the championship. But now you're on pole position on a lap where it's very difficult to overtake. That must give you a big advantage for the second race.
Yeah, to be honest, I don't like to have an advantage losing the first race. So I had a tire problems, and now I'm here. What I can do to try to win the race, no more.
Thank you, Nicola.
So Nicola Rini on pole position, and there you can see at the back of the grid the man who won, Fabrizio Giovanardi. He'll start last, and on the outside of the front row, Moreno Soli. He's a newcomer to the championship, one of a pair of new cars, 2 new BMWs, and he starts alongside Larini. Third place is the number 3 machine of Romana Bernardoni. And she was obviously there for third last in the previous race, as you will no doubt gather that's the way it works. Then Enrico Toccacello, and a number of pit road starters. No, in fact, just one pit road starter. Of the cars that were damaged in race 1, only one will start from the pit road, and that is the Audi, I believe, of Massimo Piggioli. So just trying to identify who is and isn't on the grid. I think it's Mirko Lempänen in the number 19 car that is on the grid, and he starts on row 3. And David, the earlier race, the drivers starting to run into a touch of tyre problems at the end, but they were very much expecting that the second Super Touring race, now in the heat of the afternoon, 3 o'clock, would be much, much tougher on tyres. But stiff breeze, a little bit overcast. You've just been out the back door. What's the temperature looking like at the moment? It's hard to tell with the air conditioning working so efficiently in our booth.
It's still very warm out there. It's not quite as warm as it was yesterday afternoon when we had the qualifying, etc. So maybe a little bit easier on the tyres than we were expecting, but still I don't see it being too easy. These cars, front-wheel drive cars especially, have really got to make the front of the car work so much harder. Four-wheel drive car obviously should be the best here. Very twisty circuit, so it can make a good use of it there. So we'll have to wait and see, but I would think Cole Giorgio will make a very good start, as he always does with his four-wheel drive car. And if he can get off that line and get to the front fairly quickly, I think he could find that some of the other more expansive cars could have a problem. Remembering that Larini's starting on the front, that always sort of makes a mess of my theory, but
that will separate the men from the boys, because Larini starting on front. Well, we've seen every race so far this year. It's been a question of whether the fast guys will work their way through the field, and they always have. It's always been the Alphas or the Hondas or the Audi that have won. However, they have never had the situation that they've got now, where one of the outright front runners is actually starting on the front. And that's what we're looking at now. So it's going to be very tough indeed for Tarquini, even tougher, I venture, for Giovanardi, the new points leader. And another car just coming out. We just saw a moment or two ago Eric Cairol pulling off from the grid in his red, yellow, blue and white BMW. His teammate Paolo Zadra has finally appeared at the exit of the pit lane, so he will be starting from the pit lane. Now you'll have to excuse us, because David and I are going to take this opportunity to write down what the grid is. 3 and 10, 19 Lempänen, I've got Lancialotti alongside him, that's good. Then I've got 18 alongside. Okay, so that is Sardelli, and I think we're not going to see Matt Neal. Okay, so we've got Valfish, excuse me about this, Colchiago, Kolk, and then Tark and Giov. Okay, so no Matt Neal. I can't see him at the end of the pit road. I can still only see 2 cars, the Audi and the BMW. So Matt Neal's car and both of the Opels, which were, well, Gianluca Roda's car was pushed off the grid because it wouldn't start, and Simancic's car, which blew up in qualifying, started but failed to finish, unlike Magnus Magnusson. So Simancic not in the race, or not in this race, he did finish of course, but nose on to the pit wall, so he won't take much of a part in this race. There's Piggioli, and behind him Zadra, and in fact, of course, starting from the pits, they will start behind even Giovanardi. Now, there's been an awful lot of discussion and talk going on with regard to the future of touring car racing and production saloon racing in Europe. The recent FIA World Council approved a new set of regulations for the European Touring Car Championship for next year, and we've been talking to a few of the main players here. We'll be catching up with that after this race, so if you want to know more, stay with us for the end of this one. Cars on the grid, ready for the 12th race in the European Touring Car Championship. This is Eurosport's 6th racing weekend. This is race 2 here at Budapest for the Super Tourers. Gabriele Tarquini lines up on the final row of the grid. So too does Fabrizio Giovanardi. They start on the 6th and final row of the grid. 13 laps of the 3.5-kilometre Hungaroring. Watch the Audi, second from last on the left-hand side. But watch Nicola Larini, the poleman, go, and Bernardoni behind him almost stalled the car there. Larini left big black stripes, much too much wheel spin, out-dragged comprehensively by the Italian Moreno Soli. Off goes Eric Cairol, a big off into the barriers backwards. His teammate Paolo Zadra starting from the pit lane. The first thing he'll see will be his teammate backwards in the barriers. And further back, Giovanardi off on the back of the track. But look at that. Right back there. No, that's not. That's Bernardoni. So Giovanardi has got past Bernardoni, who has gone from the second row of the grid right straight through to the back. A dreadful, dreadful start by Bernardoni. But look, Larini has now managed to get back in front, I think, of the white BMW. Was too busy trying to spot which of the Alphas was where. I think that Soli has blown his start completely. And look at this, held up behind the Conrero Alpha. Around the outside of Tarquini and Fabrice Valfish goes Giovanardi. And Tarquini, I don't know what the Latin for I'm not sure that's entirely fair is, but I'm sure he'll be using something similar to that. Giovanardi 2 spots ahead of him, and the Conrero Alpha definitely doing its level best to hold off the Hondas. Well, that's really bad news. There is Moreno Soli's white BMW right at the back. Went from the front to the back in fairly short order, beaten only to the tail of the field by Romano Bernardoni. And our pit lane starters are there. Further up is Roberto Colciaggio, as you expected, David. He's got a blinding start. He's now in 3rd place.
Yes, that car just made a superb start. A little bit boxed in down towards the first corner, but he's used all that grip that the four-wheel driver's got to get himself through around the back. And here we can see now he's right beside, or right behind one of the Conrero Alphas. Obviously, as we said before, struggling on the straight line speed a little bit, so he won't be able to do anything with it down the straight. And why the Conrero switched the wiper on, I don't know. I think he went for a different switch, but got the wrong one. You would think by now these guys driving these cars halfway through the season would learn exactly which switch works what item on the car. There we are, dives down the inside. Once he's on the inside, he'll keep that there. Oh, very wide went the Alpha there. Lost a lot of time. If he just hung on a little bit tighter, he'd been a little bit better. Just behind that in 4th place, it looks as though it's Sardelli. Then next up after that is the Giovanardi with Tarquini going round.
Going past Lemponen in the Audi, gets safely past that. And Toccacello, well, forced well out wide as he tried to defend that inside line in turn 2. Valfish makes short work of Lemponen as well. The Finns Audi is not as quick, it seems. Now watch the Audi go. Let's follow its progress. The silver car, he follows Cairol's BMW. Oh, I wonder, no, Cairol goes round one of the white Alphas, and not quite sure what that camera shot was showing us, but didn't really get long enough at the start, I'm afraid, to see just how far up the order Colciaggio went into the first corner. Sandro Sardelli in the Nissan, under pressure. And it was, again, the Conrero cars on the start line. And again, it was the number 9 car of Angelo Lanciolotti that did the damage. Last time, a la Schumacher, he rammed his teammate into the pit wall. This time, well, not his brother, his teammate. This time, he managed to dispose of Eric Cairol quite happily as well. And I wouldn't be at all there as Cairol. Yeah, doesn't look very pleased at all, does he? Wouldn't be at all surprised if Signor Lanciolotti does not have a couple of words with the stewards this weekend, because 2 shocking pieces of driving at the start, and I have to say actually some fairly shocking driving by Toccacello to allow, surprise, surprise, an Alpha through, but to badly balk the Hondas. So Nicola Larini leads, Roberto Colciaggio 3 seconds behind in 2nd place, Toccacello 3rd, Sardelli 4th. Of course, they are fighting for position. This is not being lapped by the leaders or anything else. There's no real reason why they should move out of the way. And Giovanardi there in 5th place now with Tarquini right behind him. Stop-and-go penalty being handed to car number 3, Romano Bernardoni, and to car number 10, Enrico Toccacello. Well, I can't see that Bernardoni jumped the start. unless she's been penalised for not being very quick away, I can't possibly imagine what that was for. She barely moved, never mind jumped the start, she sort of slumped the start, so I really can't see what that's for. David, any suggestions on that one?
I've got no suggestions at all. It's the quickest I've ever seen anyone lose so many places. To go from the second row of the grid to the back before you get to the second corner was one of the most amazing pieces of driving I've seen so far.
On board in the Honda, we were with Fabrice Balfish there as we chased Gabriele Tarquini and this man Fabrizio Giovanardi, the reigning champion now for the first time all year, the points leader. There is Sandro Sardelli's white Nissan. Giovanardi's got past him. Sardelli washes out wide. Honda's going for the inside line. Let's see if Balfish can go with him. Down the straight they come. Tarquini dives inside. Didn't get Sardelli at the final corner. Gets him at the first. Doors open, Fabrice. Go to the right-hand side. Sardelli will come back to cover and you can go to the inside. He didn't move fast enough, but still Sardelli guards the outside line on the run down there. And so Balfish does get that move. Both the Hondas get past the Nissan. And that puts them now up into 5th and 6th. Still not big point scoring, not compared to Nicola Larini, that's for sure. And they've still got Enrico Toccacello to dispose of. And of course he's in an Alpha, so he may not be best disposed to let the Hondas through. David, at this stage of the season, do you think it's conceivable that there is a little bit of friendly help going on among the Alpha teams?
I think at this point of the season, we mentioned before that the Hungaroring team have just been given the engines from the Nord Alpha team to help them along, and it hasn't made a big difference. They're qualifying much further nearer the front. And I would think with that help of here are some engines that will make you go much quicker. By the way, we need you to do a little bit of this and a little bit of that to help us along without being too blatant. I mean, no one is going to, at this level anyway, drive and try and keep someone back so blatant that you'll get penalised for anything like that. But if they can drive within reasonable limits and try and make life difficult for the Hondas to get past, then that's reasonably acceptable. But what you will not want them to do is to drive anybody off the road or do anything totally stupid.
Larini, Colciaggio first and second, and Giovanardi now up into 3rd place as they come across the line. Tarquini 4th, Balfish 5th, Sandro Sardelli in 6th place. Mirko Lempänen has also gone past Roberto Toccacello. I have a feeling that Toccacello may have blown a gasket somewhere. We saw him passed easily by the Hondas and the Nissan and everybody else streaming by him. I think he is. He's come into the pits. Toccacello has blown. Larini leads it. Eurosport Live, race 2 of the Euro STC, round 6 at the Hungaroring. On board with Nicola Larini, on board and outboard with Nicola Larini. The race leader started from pole position on the reversed order grid. Roberto Colciaggio started 3rd from last, he's 2nd. Fabrizio Giovanardi started 12th and last, he's 3rd. Gabriele Tarquini started 11th, he's 4th. Fabrice Balfish started in 9th place, he's in 5th place. And Sandro Sardelli started halfway down the order and he is in 6th position. The winners of race 1 start at the back of race 2. The man who leads from pole position is Nicola Larini, who had a puncture that dropped him out of contention in race 1 and meant that he was the last place finisher, so he could start race 2 from pole position. So he may temporarily have lost the lead of the championship, David Leslie, but I have to say after this race I think he will have it back as Angelo Lanciolotti comes past us very slowly. We ride with Fabrice Balfish. Tarquini and Giovanardi are losing him, but I don't think there's much chance of them catching and passing Larini for the lead, do you?
No, Larini's took the opportunity. He lost the first race with that spin and that puncture, so he took the opportunity to make sure he could get back to the pits, put another wheel on, get out and finish the race. That put him on to the front of the grid for this race. So having lost that previous one, all he can do is think about the next one. He's done that, he's gone out there and he's done a really good job. He started off the front, and with the other quick guys at the back, he's making hay while the sun shines, as they say. So I think they'll find it very difficult to get anywhere near him. Colciaggio's got a nice safe 2nd place. And now we're looking at third Giovanardi and Tarquini right behind. Now we've seen in race 1, Tarquini followed Giovanardi for the whole race, basically trying to get past him and couldn't. And I think it'll look pretty similar here. He tends to be a little bit quicker than Tarquini. He certainly was on the last lap, something like half a second a lap quicker. And has caught Giovanardi up with catching somebody in a 2-litre Super Touring car. Front-wheel drive is one thing, getting past is something totally different. So on the straights here we can see very little difference between the two of them. If I would say probably Alpha easing out a little bit along the actual start-finish straight. So Gabrielli trying to make it up all around the corners, around the back of the circuit. Very difficult, as I said before, quite a narrow circuit. Very twisted from one side to the other, so a bit of an uphill job here to try and get that third place and a few more points.
Nicola Larini is on lap 6, as are these guys, of 13, so nearly half distance. In fact, he's probably done half the distance. Romano Bernardoni finally deigns to come in for her stop-and-go penalty. Roberto Enrico Toccacello flew through the pits earlier on. Now that's a bit of a telling picture. She could barely get away from a standstill at the stop-and-go. She
went to set off and stalled it. By the look of it, you can see the thing start the wheel spin and all of a sudden almost stop, and you can see the hand going for the starter button to have another go at it. So a little bit excited when you come in there, something obviously you don't normally do is the stop and go. It's not something you would normally practice to make sure you get it right.
I wonder if she had a similar problem on the grid then, if she's maybe got like a hire car, a flat spot anywhere below about 4,000 RPM and it won't pull away from anywhere. Larini leads then, Colciaggio all over the back of him. Colciaggio the fastest car on the track at the moment and has been for the last 2 or 3 laps. Quicker even than Gabriele Tarquini. Tarquini's pace has dropped a fraction because he's now right behind Giovanardi. But Colciaggio, David, look at this. He's actually so close to Larini that he might almost be within shouting distance. Not at turn 1, but down the hill at turn 2. What he's got to do, though, is keep his tyres alive for maybe lap 10 onwards of this 13-lap race, when he can push Larini harder and harder and hopefully ruin the Alfa's tyres.
I think certainly he's got more chance of that, remembering he's got 4-wheel drive, so he's putting the power through all the 4 tyres. Everybody else is putting it through only the front wheels. So I think his tyres have got more of a chance of lasting. All these people are using exactly the same tyres, and it's a one-make formula as far as tyres goes, so everyone has exactly the same tyre, but spreading that load over 4 instead of over 2, as the front-wheel drive cars are, I'm sure he can look after them much more, and he'll be looking towards the end of the race, as you said, to making a move.
But he has to keep the pressure on. The whole point here is that he needs to push Larini, force Larini really to abuse his tyres, but wow. Now that is the drive through the chicane. That is the way the Audi rides those curbs as well, because you throw the Alfa at the curbs just like you throw the Audi at the curbs, but the Alfa really takes off over them. The Audi seems to ride them much better, and anybody who remembers the Audis racing in Britain in the British Touring Car Championship, you know, the way Frank Beeler used to hurl his car around and it would still come back for more over any kind of curbing. Those are a very resilient car. They look like they were carved from solid, not pressed from sheet. And Nicola Larini in second place. You saw team boss Monica Sips on the pit wall. Well, it's only almost to be expected on this tight and twisty and rather technical track that the Audi was going to be in with a shot. But now let's see what Larini can do in a straight line. Well, answer, not much. Audi pulling away. Watch Larini fly there, which the Audi seems almost to keep its wheels planted on the downhill side of the curb. And Larini really bounced up there, and just a fraction more traction through the chicane gave Colciaggio the run. So Colciaggio caught down the straights by Larini. And interesting, we were watching Larini in qualifying, and David, I did point out this onboard camera, he seems to be moving the car, I mean really moving the car around, always using a lot of steering, a lot of action on the wheel, and yet Giovanardi seems to be a much smoother driver. We see Pajoli's car stop there. I was really interested to hear that the Michelin tyre engineers say that despite what outwardly seems like a much more aggressive driving style, Larini's actually much kinder on his tyres, and I couldn't really kind of associate that fact with what we see. It's some bizarre factor of his driving, obviously, that he's just nicer to them somehow.
I have to say, I tend to agree with you. When you watch him inside the car, he's very aggressive with the car. He's working the steering wheel all the time. he really does throw it around. Maybe he's doing that to try and keep a nice balance in the car, so the car avoids balance through the corner. And while Giovinardi might be smooth to watch from inside the car, if the car is actually slipping and sliding around on the circuit, then that will generate a lot more heat in the tyres and not do them a lot of good as they sort of go through this race, this very difficult race with the heat and the multiple corners that we have on this, the Hungarian Grand Prix circuit.
Well, we've certainly seen that Giovinardi is sliding the car around. The last 2 or 3 close-up shots, the car really moving 4 square across the road. And if he's in tyre trouble, then presumably behind him, Gabriele Tarquini may be in a similar sort of trouble as well. He is right with Giovinardi, and like Colciaggio before him, looking down the inside of the Alfa at the first corner. And again, the deal with Tarquini, he would perhaps empirically be faster if he could get past Giovinardi and be able to drive away from him. What he's got to do is try and force Giovinardi to lose his control on this, his tenure on this 3rd place. Just rattle him enough to be able to squeak by, because I do think that if Tarquini can get by, he will probably stay ahead of him in 3rd place, and that would put him nicely between the 2 Alphas in terms of point scoring, allow him to close the gap a fraction to Giovinardi, if not to Larini, the points leader. Well, David, you know this Honda Super Tourer very well. What are its strengths really on a track like this? Is it its sheer straight line speed? Does it have ability to ride the curbs well? Is it better in the corners? Where would you be looking to try and make advantage of its chassis and its capabilities?
I would have to say it's very good, very strong engine. But having said that, the Alfa Romeo, as we've learned this weekend, has done a lot of work on their engine, and they've made it go that bit better than it was previously. So maybe the Honda no longer has the advantage that they had, but certainly on this tight circuit, the Honda is very good at the front end. It really can sort of get hold of that tarmac, and when you turn the steering wheel, does turn in very sharply and does have very good grip on these tighter corners. So I would say it was very much suited to a tighter circuit rather than a very, very fast circuit. Having said that, Gabriele is very much stuck behind the Alphas here, whereas at Monza, at the very first race, he was so much quicker than what they were. Maybe he was just a little bit more switched on. I do know that Monza is his favourite circuit, and at Monza he did make his car fly, even though he did actually have to start out of the pit lane.
Well, he was quick enough, 2nd fastest in the morning warm-up this morning. Gabriele Tarquini in the Honda, 2nd fastest in the morning warm-up. Half a second slower than Roberto Colciaggio's Audi. He was the fastest car of all in the morning warm-up. Colciaggio leading this race, having started in 10th place. Nicola Larini behind him 2nd, having started in 1st place. That just shows how much speed Colciaggio had. In fact, in the warm-up, he was nearly exactly half a second quicker than Tarquini. Matt Neal was 3rd quickest, and he was 9/10 slower than Colciaggio. Larini 4th quickest, 1.1, and Fabrice Valfish also 1.1 seconds behind in 5th place. And in the morning warm-up, well, there was all sorts of problems for the number 1 Alfa. Didn't go out in the Super Touring warm-up at all. He had a dreadful time, did Giovinardi, and although Giovinardi was on pole after qualifying on Saturday, he looked grumpy as anything, didn't he, when he was leaving the track, David? Really in a miserable mood, and I don't suppose his mood will have lightened very much after race 1, but race 2 certainly won't be helping him.
No, I don't know why, but last night when he was going out the circuit, he seemed to be, well, down about something. I don't know who told him some bad news or whatever, but he went slowly wandering out the circuit towards his car, and then got in and gave his car a hard time as he left the circuit as well.
Yes. Judging by the look of his girlfriend, she'd been having a bit of a cold shoulder as well. He really wasn't in very much of a mood for anything yesterday, I don't think. I have to say, you know, having qualified on pole, I'm not really sure why. Maybe he just discovered that Larini hadn't used his last set of new tyres or some such, and thought, oh, blimey, I'm going to be in trouble tomorrow. Anyway, fit of the grumps or not, he did win the first race. He has got the championship lead, and he will retain it after this, of course, unless he fails to finish, because Larini scored nothing from the first race, and there was only 2 points between them. So even though Larini is 1 car ahead of him at the moment on the racetrack, that means that Giovinardi will go away from the Hungaroring, contemplating going to Austria in about a month's time as the points leader. Top of the hill, highest point of the circuit, the back chicane. Giovanardi with Tarquini still trying to take third place from him as they start this gradual descent down into the bottom side of the valley. And I think perhaps the stiff breeze that's picked up in the last 40 minutes or so has helped the temperature a little bit. Certainly helped the air temperature a little bit. Maybe the track temperature has suited, but still pretty tough work. And again, Giovanardi's car looking like it's moving around a lot more than the Honda.
I think if these guys can just keep their wits about them and not make any mistakes, then Tarquini will find it very difficult to get past Giovanardi. Looks like Larini decided to settle for second place. He's a little bit back now, some 2.5 seconds back on Colgiaggio. So this will be, if I'm right, Colgiaggio's first win this year.
Well, Giovanardi in third place, 6 seconds back from Larini, certainly not going to advance himself any further up the order, and as you say, absolutely critical for him really that he keeps Tarquini behind. You know, don't let that rot set in that you keep getting past on the last lap. He'll definitely want to keep the Honda back. But for Colgiaggio, well, we've seen him fare well in the rain. Of course, as you would expect with a four-wheel drive car, we've seen him left behind in the real high-speed sweeps of places like Monza and Silverstone. But here at the Hungaroring, well, it was a very strong first race for him. He finished third place, podium finish in race 1, and he will win race 2. So that is a very good weekend indeed for Roberto Colciaggio. And I bet the Audi would be quite happy to come to some more tight, twisty circuits. One of our email correspondents said, any chance of a super racing weekend coming to Mondello Park in Ireland next year? Tell you what, if you asked Colciaggio and then showed him the circuit layout, he'd be going, oh yes, yes please, give me some of that. And could you arrange some of that nice warm Irish rain as well for us? But I'm not sure that will unfortunately be the case. Mondello, a great place to go racing, and a very nicely revised Mondello Park circuit currently in operation, but I'm not sure that the Eurosport Racing Weekend will make it over there. We'll have to wait and see what plans they have for us next year. But for Roberto Colciaggio, it's been a very happy weekend at Budapest. Victory for him. Teammate Pijoli retires, but Colciaggio wins comfortably by 3 seconds from Larini. Giovanardi, 7 seconds back in third place, just ahead of Gabriele Tarquini. Fabrice Valpis will be 5th, and Sandro Sardelli, the best of the amateur teams, in 6th position. And for Paul McNeil, dramas in the first race, unfixable. He didn't get a chance to start race 2, but certainly the Audi team are very happy indeed with that. I should think Roberto Colciaggio will be a very pleased bunny as well. And in terms of the championship points, that certainly moves he and Gabriele Tarquini a lot closer together. But the big threat still, of course, Fabrizio Giovanardi, the new points leader, and Nicola Larini in second place, just relentlessly racking up the points. They seem almost unable to fail to finish these races, which is very bad news for Colciaggio and for Tarquini, who have had a number of incidents this season. So victorious at the Hungaroring, Roberto Colciaggio launching the Audi over the curbs and assaulting the scenery. Doesn't seem to make much difference. The car has lasted under him, and he's driven superbly to win here in race 2. Well, David Leslie, Roberto Colciaggio winning, and the Audi driver really making his way very swiftly to the front at the start, but helped by the retirements of a number of the midfield runners. Still, good job by Colciaggio. Took the first chance that he managed to force out of Nicola Larini and never really looked back.
He did. He was got through. He didn't get through on the start line as he would want, I'm sure, but took him a very short time to get himself up into second place, and just caught Larini hand over fist as he was going along. He was taking a good second lap out of him when he caught him, and I thought it was going to take some time to get past, but he managed to come out of that chicane over that curb much quicker than what Larini did, and simply shot down the inside to outbrake him into the very next corner. So there we are, very well driven indeed. Fantastic for Colgiaggio with this privateer Audi that they've got here, up against some very strong opposition from the Nord Auto Alphas. That was the mechanic shooting in there to welcome him and thank him very much for an absolutely fantastic job. But they've got to remember they're actually now parked their cars in what they call parc fermé, which is an area where no one can touch a car, so even the mechanics can't go in there and say, fantastic job, I'll unhook your helmet and get you out. They've got to leave the car alone and not touch it whatsoever, so they'll be ushered away from the car now and towards the cameras to talk to them and then onto the podium.
Good job by the AGS Motorsport crew, and Klaus Scheppers from Holland wants to know, how is it that an old A4, and it must be an old car, I mean they can't have been raced by the factory for 4 or 5 years, how is it that it's quicker than a 2001 Alfa Romeo? Well, simple fact of the matter is that if you've got better traction, even if you're carrying more weight, then you will be able to perform better out of slower corners, and that's the way it works. The Audi has got fabulous traction. Here's Roberto Colciaggio.
Roberto, you got off to a great start there, and then there was a super move overtaking in the chicane. It's a first and third this weekend. It seems as though your car really likes this tight, twisty circuit.
No, it was good. Only in the beginning I have a little problem with the giver, and but after everything runs well, and the car was really perfect, so he make me overtaking Larini after was really not easy, but you know, it was more easy.
And first and third this weekend, that's good for the championship for you.
Well, I really don't know how is now the point in the championship, but like I say in the beginning, I try to do my best every race, so we will see in the end if everything went in my way or in the other way of some other driver.
Thank you, Roberto.
Good job, Roberto Colciaggio, and he's talking about his gearbox. David had a new gearbox fitted for the weekend, very notchy in qualifying, he said, which gave him a lot of problems, and he thought really sort of showed or failed to show his speed. You can see the points, the way they line up there, but Colciaggio, the gearbox wearing itself in gradually in race one and in the warm-up this morning, really much more able to show his speed, but still with Larini starting on pole, not just a little bit ahead of him, but on pole, I am surprised that Larini